Orleans.
Plus, a Robert Downey Jr. movie that isn't Iron Man makes my list of the top 10 movies of the decade.
This is the last time you'll ever see me.
I know what he did to you. But Bella, I won't ever hurt you. I promise.
You're sort of beautiful.
Will she go with the buff werewolf or the sparkly vampire? What would you do? It's the Twilight Saga, New Moon. I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times.
Yes, indeed, and I'm Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune. I sort of like the first Twilight movie, based on the first of 4 Stephenie Meyer bestsellers about Bella Swan, a teenager played by Kristen Stewart, who's living in a drizzly Northwest town with her lawman father and her secret life with vampires. Now we have New Moon, and you know what? It's a tick or two better than the first one. Story starts with an 18th birthday party.
There's a cake, too. Alice, like cake could feed 50. You guys don't even eat. Thanks. Oh, there's a paper cut.
Tough crowd. Fearing for Bella's safety, boyfriend Edward, played by Robert Pattinson, takes off to Italy in a suicidal funk, leaving Bella behind in a funk of her own, though her friend Jacob, played by Taylor Lautner, takes her mind off her troubles. Thing is, he's a werewolf.
Bella!
Torn between 2 hunky supernatural boyfriends and feeling like an emo fool, Bella, who wants to go vampire, hops a plane to Italy to save her man.
She knows too much. She's a liability.
That's true. Felix.
Michael Sheen is the head of the Volturi, who are basically vampires with tenure. Now, why, despite its epic self-seriousness, does New Moon basically work? Mainly because Stewart and Pattinson are so good in these roles, you buy even the Olympian bouts of moping and longing and yearning and moping, and the effects in this film are far more persuasive than they were in the first Twilight. Like that one, which was directed by Catherine Hardwicke, director Chris Weitz' New Moon doesn't feel like a blockbuster out for blood. I like the size and atmosphere of the film, so on balance, Tony, I say see it.
Now,
I'm surprised.
I know that all of America is waiting breathlessly for the opinion of 2 middle-aged guys on this movie.
On this film particularly.
I have to say, I've rarely felt more irrelevant in my life, but I like this too, and I say see it. It's not just a movie for teenage girls. It's a movie that turns everyone watching it into a teenage girl. And I enjoyed that, you know, because what's extraordinary about it, too, is that it creates this and sustains this mood of just, like, desperate longing. And it is the most sexually charged movie with no sex in it that you can imagine.
I thought you said Bright Star, the Jay Campion film was the same thing.
Well, they're very similar. There's, you know, this kind of skinny, weird emo guy and this girl who's just totally in love with him and can't have him and just sort of spends all this time in her room hoping and brooding.
They were working with better material in Bright Star, I think, originally.
Well, you like this one better. You
said
rent that one and see this one.
Here's the thing. These books, you know, the Stephenie Meyer books, I mean, they're truly terrible. I mean, they're terrible. You know, and the great advantage of the film is no one actually has to say a sentence like his golden eyes smoldered. You know, you don't.
See
no
the
one says
golden
that.
eyes smoldering.
And look, you know, Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson are working everything they can to kind of get real people on the screen in ridiculous situations. Well, but I believe it.
Has,
you know?
it has an amazing kind of emotional integrity and intensity. So if you don't resist it, you can just enter into the state of feeling and the mood and just be really swept up in a very old-fashioned kind of romance. This is a very, very romantic picture.
It is. In its way, it is.
I liked it. I don't apologize.
I liked it too.
Our next movie is The Blindside, in which Sandra Bullock plays a Memphis Spitfire named Leanne Toohey, who along with her family takes in a troubled, homeless young man named Michael Orr.
Do you have any place to stay tonight? Don't you dare lie to me.
I've seen that look many times. She's about to get her way.
Turns out Mike also happens to be a football powerhouse. You get a pretty good idea of Leanne in this scene, where she lets Mike, his coach, and any Oscar voters who may be watching know just who's boss.
This team is your family, Michael. When you look at him, you think of me, how you have my back. Are you going to protect your family, Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
SJ, you're going to want to get this.
few eyebrows are raised when this rich white woman welcomes a poor black teenager into her home. Some of the local ladies who lunch wonder just what their friend is up to, and you can bet that Leanne sets them straight.
Is this some sort of white guilt thing?
I don't need y'all to approve my choices, all right? But I do ask that you respect them. You have no idea what this boy's been through, and if this is going to become some running diatribe, I can find an overpriced salad a lot closer to home.
The Blindside, directed by John Lee Hancock, is based on a true story recounted in Michael Lewis's best-selling book of the same title. It's also relentlessly sentimental, riddled with cliches, and full of a condescending vanity that it mistakes for compassion. Mike, played by Quentin Aaron, barely registers as a character. It's all about Leanne. Now, I have no doubt that the real Leanne Tui is a good person, but that doesn't prevent The Blindside from being a pretty bad movie. One you should skip.
Yes, skip it. Now, Sandra Bullock would have been good in a good version of the story, but you know,
Yes. But she has a lot of energy and
she's good. Well, she always does. But and she's a smart actress. But you have a scene, the key scene for me, on where this movie's going wrong. She's out to lunch with the other snippy, kind of well-to-do women of Memphis, right? And one of them says to her, you know, you're changing this boy's life, and she says, no. 3-second pause. He's changing mine, but we haven't seen it. We have not seen that character progress,
no, but that's
change
the problem.
in any way.
It's not just is this a movie where a line like that would occur with, you know, the swell of music and the dabbing of tears, but it doesn't show you any change in her life.
No.
That is, she's so good-hearted and full of love that she takes this boy into her home, adopts him as her son, gets him into the University of Mississippi, where in real life he did go on to play football and then was drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. But there's no remarkably little drama and internal conflict and change in this
Worse
movie.
than that, I think that, you know, as you mentioned, they totally sidelined the key character, so that by the time, you know, by the time you really want to know what's going on in Orr's mind and all this, he's basically been reduced to a series of reaction shots, and he's essentially a near-mute saint, and you do not honor that character's, you know, achievements in this kind of treatment.
Well, because it never goes inside. It's one of these movies, in a way, very old-fashioned, in a bad way, in its racial attitudes, which is that it can only depict black people either as these kind of monsters, the drug-addicted mother, the drug dealer in the ghetto, or as this kind of blank,
very little dimensional in the middle.
Charity. You compare it to a movie like Precious, which takes an impoverished black teenager, a lot like Mike Orr in a way, and goes inside her world and makes you identify with her.
Inadvertently patronizing, I'd say.
Absolutely.
And you can skip it, unfortunately. Coming up next, Nicolas Cage plays a cop who makes his leaving Las Vegas character look stone cold sober in Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans.
And later, it's a monstrously egotistical astronaut versus some aliens in Planet 51, starring Dwayne Johnson.
I'm stepping outside. I'd like to talk to you. I'm going to give you a chance to make some money the old-fashioned way, with a cop protecting you.
You a crazy mother.
When Nicolas Cage is on fire, there isn't a movie screen on Earth that can hold him. The actor is astonishing in Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. The movie's loosely based on Abel Ferrara's 1992 Bad Lieutenant. Here, as Hurricane Katrina rages outside, the cops, played by Cage and Val Kilmer, decide what to do about a prisoner who's about to go under.
Wait a minute. You want me to get wet on account of you?
I think the world owes you living, huh?
Drown, sir. Hey, man, I got on Swiss cotton underpants.
Oh, come on, man. Now let the fire department get him out. What are you, crazy? He ain't worth it.
Those sewage-laden floodwaters are really an extension of the main character's soul. He's trying to solve a multiple murder while satisfying his cocaine, marijuana, and Vicodin habits. Eva Mendes plays the cop's call girl lover, who in this scene has a client come calling.
Cooperate with me, I'll let you walk out of here. You play games, come with her. I got some coke. Get it.
Midway through the story, our hero appears to jump the fence and join forces with the gangster known as Big Fate, played by rapper Alvin Exhibit Joyner.
Money's money. Tell you what, you be the front man, I'll be the power behind the throne. It's like we're working for a greater good.
Yeah, you're right.
Now, that scene could almost get by in an ordinary vigilante cop movie. On the other hand, I can't imagine Dirty Harry saying the line, "What are these iguanas doing on my coffee table?" None of this movie should work, really, but the director, Werner Herzog, loves his obsessives. Bad Lieutenant is just whacked enough to complement what Cage is up to as an actor, but not so whacked that it tries to out-crazy him. See it. This is a very stimulating picture.
See it, because otherwise you won't believe it. I mean, that iguana scene is really something, and contains, as far as I know, the first shot in cinematic history from the point of view of a hallucinated reptile.
Right. Now we should mention
really,
that Cage is in a drug-induced hallucination state.
And at the crime scene, he imagines that he sees these giant iguanas. But the thing about this movie that I enjoyed so much, it's not a great masterpiece. It's not, you know, the best movie Werner Herzog, who's a great director, has ever made. But it makes you realize how dull and by the book so many cop movies are. This one has some real feeling and unpredictability and surprise. It's like the character itself and like the performance. Everything in this movie just kind of keeps you watching and wondering what's going to happen next, where's it going to go next, and just kind of by the skin of its teeth, it all comes together.
And I think the more you have kind of a resistance to the ordinary vigilante cop movie, the more you're going to kind of be intrigued by what Herzog's up to here. And the film I kept thinking of, Tony, was Orson Welles' Touch of Evil. Very different stylistically. Another kind of portrait in corruption with a badge, right? But like that film, this one really doesn't, in the end, care much about the conventional plot issues. You know, it's all about the actor playing the central part, and Cage is just, it's a feast of comic
and the twists at the end are not plot twists, but they're just these kind of almost like punchlines to cosmic jokes. And you can go to atthemoviestv.com and click on web exclusives, where you can see Michael and I talking some more about the wild and crazy career of Nicolas Cage.
A lot to talk about right there. Coming up next, we're counting down the decade's best movies, and we'll reveal our number 6 picks.
And on next week's show, John Travolta and Robin Williams try to learn some new tricks in Old Dogs.
Blindside.
Now it's time to continue our countdown of the best movies of the last 10 years. Recapping my list so far, at number 10, I had Minority Report. Number 9, Gosford Park. Number 8, Mulholland Drive. Number 7, United 93. And now my number 6 pick, David Fincher's Zodiac, which came out in 2007 and struck me at that time as an exceptional true crime picture. Now, though, it seems more than that. The film examines the case of the Zodiac serial killer murders around San Francisco in the late 1960s and 70s. The violence in the film all comes in the first third. The rest deals with characters played by Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., Anthony Edwards, and Mark Ruffalo as they track their elusive quarry.
How does one do that?
I like puzzles. I do them a lot.
Got any hard suspects?
About 90 an hour. Come up to around 500.
You got 4 crime scenes, not a single usable print. You can't think of this case in normal police terms.
Most thrillers built around scenery-chewing serial killers, like the ones in No Country for Old Men or The Silence of the Lambs, tend to score with audiences and Oscar voters, certainly more so than a brooding symphony of frustration and paranoia like Zodiac. So be it. Fincher's film is a singular testament to loose ends never to be tied. This film, very haunting.
It sort of settles into your bones like a damp chill. And it's one of the great evocations of just a kind of atmosphere of dread. It's not even the killer himself, as you say. It's just this sort of, this feeling that it's kind of in the air, in the fog of San Francisco. It's also, I think, a milestone in the incorporation of digital and CGI effects into realist filmmaking. Most directors use those effects for fantasy and magic. Fincher uses it to create a period atmosphere of San Francisco in the 70s.
And every digital effect in this picture, in almost every shot, you know, it's meant to be invisible. All you're doing is getting closer and closer to the period itself, and it's masterly filmed.
Good pick.
Thank you. Very gracious of you to say so.
So far, my picks for the best movies of the past 10 years have been Clint Eastwood's $1 Million Baby, Spike Lee's 25th Hour, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and the Romanian film 4 Months, 3 Weeks, and 2 Days. My number 6 pick is also from Europe, from Italy, land of Fellini and Visconti, and some of my favorite movies of all time. This one is called The Best of Youth. It was directed by Marco Tullio Giordana and originally made as a miniseries for Italian television. If you seek it out on DVD, you'll be rewarded by the rich, emotionally absorbing story of a family living through a period of tumultuous change.
Ma che fai truccato alla militare? Ma che truccato? Questo è il militare. Scusa, ma l'università? Non faccio più l'università.
The Best of Youth follows 2 brothers, Nicola and Matteo Carrati, across 4 decades, from the 1960s to the present era. The whole sweep of recent Italian history is conveyed in 6 hours of swirling, intricate, beautifully acted drama.
Ciao, nonna. Ciao. Ciao, zione.
La nonna ha detto ciao, eh? Se piangi ti tiro un cazzotto.
This is a great one, maybe the great movie from any country about the baby boom generation coming of age in a changing world.
Tony, I'm so glad you recommended this. I'm only 2 hours into it, but it is something to absolutely fall into, like people would have in this country to Lonesome Dove.
Yes.
You know, it's a family story. You just absolutely feel yourself being pulled into this.
I have to say, I've forced this movie on a lot of people, saying, you know, you've got to see this 6-hour Italian movie, and everyone has thanked me for it.
We're going to show all 6 hours right now. Both Zodiac and The Best of Youth are currently available on DVD.
Michael, you know, more than 10,000 viewers so far have come to our website at themoviestv.com to vote for their picks for the best movies of the decade. Most of them seem to be voting right now for Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, followed by The Dark Knight, and then The Departed. So far,
that's pretty good.
You can go to atthemoviestv.com or twitter.com/atthemoviestv and give us your pick for the best movie of the decade.
Coming up next, a former pro wrestler goes to outer space. It's Dwayne Johnson in Planet 51.
Huh? Hello?
What the? Duck?
Now we voyage to Planet 51, an animated movie that takes a semi-clever premise and turns it into 90 minutes of sheer torment. Not for the green, four-fingered residents of a distant planet who live in some kind of extraterrestrial version of Pasadena in the 1950s, and not for Chuck, an astronaut from Earth who lands on this planet, sparking curiosity and mass hysteria.
You better run!
No, I'm afraid the real suffering is reserved for parents who accompany their children to this witless, cynical exercise. An interesting cast, including Jessica Biel, Justin Long, and Dwayne Johnson as that astronaut, is totally wasted. The humor is lazy and crude. The animation lacks the slightest hint of magic. Here's a tip for the parents out there. Take your kids to the museum. Sign them up for some extra science tutoring. Treat the whole family to dental checkups. Do anything, but skip this movie.
Skip it. It's not a strong enough phrase. It's like, and it's
skip it twice.
It's actually it's actually an 87-minute movie, by the way, and it's an 87-minute wince. People at home can see just from this picture here how high quality the animation is. But more than that, you talk about the crudeness. Okay, there's plenty of free-floating crudeness on the Nickelodeon channel at home. But I mean, there's just one too many anal probe jokes for my taste. You know, maybe if I was 8, but ugh, no.
No, even if you're, but also there are these dumb action sequences. The whole thing is just terrible. I mean, it makes me look back fondly on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which I know you liked a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Anyway, also out in theaters, a movie that's definitely not for kids. It's Red Cliff, the latest action movie from Hong Kong director John Woo. You can go to atthemoviestv.com and click on web exclusives to get our full review.
And coming up next, want to know what you can't miss this weekend? Stay tuned for My 3 to See.
Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by...
You decide. Whiten your teeth with strips that slip or whiten them 25% faster with Aquafresh White Trays. A study shows white trays whiten 25% faster than Crest White Strips Premium. And use them just once a day. Start seeing results in 3. Aquafresh White Tray.
Hotel provided by Park Hyatt Chicago. Chicago's award-winning hotel and luxury dining experience. Located in the heart of Chicago's Magnificent Mile on Water Tower Square.
Okay, time for My 3 to See. From the ridiculous to the ridiculous, with a stop in between for some very fine drama. Number 3, 2012, the Uber disaster picture that does all the work for you and then works overtime and then refuses to go home from work at all. Even at more than 2.5 hours, it's my kind of cheeseball spectacle. Number 2 is a beautifully acted and finely tuned film called The Messenger. Ben Foster, Woody Harrelson, and Samantha Morton star in this home front drama about casualty notification officers doing the best they can with one of the toughest jobs imaginable. And number 1, showcasing the high wire acting feat of the year, Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans, in which Nicolas Cage plays a drug-addled police detective trying to keep his head above water in post-Katrina New Orleans.
That's it for now. Go to atthemoviestv.com or twitter.com/atthemoviestv to give us your picks for the best movie of the decade.
We'll leave you with a recap of this week's show. Join us next week when we'll continue to count down the top 10 movies of the decade. Plus, we'll review John Travolta and Robin Williams in Old Dogs, and Viggo Mortensen and Charlize Theron in The Road. And until then, we'll be at the movies.
Treat yourself to holiday hotcakes at IHOP with gingerbread, eggnog, and pecan pie pancakes. IHOP. Come hungry, leave happy, and treat someone special with a gift card.
Activon Ultra Strength for powerful pain relief. A convenient applicator means no messy creams. Activon, applied directly where it hurts for joint pain, muscle pain, arthritis, and backache.
The Nesquik Guide to Health and Happiness. Stay loose. Nesquik. Come to your happy place.
Wrong day not to shave.
I haven't shaved in 3 months.
It's the new killer app.
New Silk and Sense Appeal. See the light at silken.com and see unwanted hair disappear.